Hey everyone, today we are going to tackle the great classic solo to Aqualung by Martin Barre and Jethro Tull. I'm not going to do any long preamble for this one before we get started. I did that in my cover for the top 100 guitar solo list, where this one comes in at a very deserving number 25, Guitar World Magazine's top 100 solos of all time. It's right down there if you want to check it out. All right, so we're working in standard tuning with this one, so get your guitar in standard tuning. We're mostly working in the G minor pentatonic. He dips into a few notes out of the natural minor scale, but for the most part, we're in the pentatonic. This is a great pentatonic workout. There's some string skipping, some very interesting note choices, and a few very well thought out scale runs. And some of the most interesting uses of the pentatonic that I've ever come across in a classic solo. Very interesting solo, very melodic, classic, very well constructed solo that Martin put down here. So let's dig into this one, shall we? I'm going to run through it quickly, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what this solo is all about. So let's go. And that's how you play the solo at Aqualung, and we're going to teach you guys how to do it. I'm just going to pause this for a sec, check my levels, and I'll be right back. All right, so the first part of this solo is basically 5 distinct start-stop phrases, and each one ending with a little bit of vibrato before it leads into a bit more of a complicated scale run. So we're going to run through each one of these phrases. This is the first one. This is the second one. This is the third one. This is the fourth one. This is the fifth one. And this is the scale run. So the first phrase, we're starting on the 3rd fret of the B string, and then we're going down to 1 of the high E, and then 3 of the high E, and then sliding into 5. Now you could also play that up here, and I think Martin Barre actually plays it up there, but I like to play it down here because it keeps everything compact, because the next phrase is right there. So. And then the second phrase is this. So your first note's on the 3rd fret of the G, and then you're hammering on 2 to 3 and then releasing back to 2. And then you're grabbing 3 of the D and then 3 of the A. Kind of just rolling your finger up and down there. So the first phrase. Second phrase. And now the third phrase, you're hammering on 3 to 5 of the A, and then you're grabbing 3 and 5 of the D, and then sliding into 7. So the first 2 notes you're hammering on, and then the next 2 notes you're picking, and then sliding into 7. And then the fourth phrase is this. So you're on the 3rd fret of the A, and then you're sliding 5 to 7 of the A, and then you're grabbing the 5th fret of the D, and then the 5th fret of the G, and then kind of killing that note a little bit, and then backing it up to the 3rd fret of the G. And you're killing that note, and then you're backing it up. It's a nice little backwards kind of pentatonic thing there. And that's the 4th phrase. The 5th phrase, that's 3 on the high E, up to 4 on the B, up to 5 on the G. You're letting the first 2 notes ring together. And then when you get to the 5th fret of the G, you're killing the first 2 notes. And then the next part is the 3rd fret of the high E, 3rd fret of the B, 3rd fret of the G, and you're doing the same thing, letting the first 2 notes ring together, and when you get to the 3rd fret of the G, you're killing the first 2 notes. See what I mean there? So from the top. And that leads us into this scale run. And the beginning of this scale run is the same thing as the 3rd phrase. That part there. But once you get to that note, you're hitting the 5th fret of the G 4 times. And then back up to 7 of the D. And then again, you're going from 5 on the G back up to 7 of the D. And then you're going back down to the 5th fret of the G for 2 more hits. So the first half of that scale run. One more time. And now you're going to pull off from 7 to 5 of the G. Pulling off 7 to 5, up to 7 of the D, back to 5 of the G, back to 7 of the D. One more time. And then finishing up the whole intro part of the solo with this. Wait 1 sec. So yeah, 5 to 7 of the G, down to 6 of the B, and then we're jumping up to the 8th fret of the B for a bend and release, full step bend release, quick. Back to 6 of the B, back to 5 of the G, up to 7 of the G, and then sliding out of it. So that whole scale runs slowly. And one more time. And that leads into the first main part of the solo. And I'm going to run and get a cup of tea, and I'll be right back for part 2. All right, so we're coming out of the intro part of this solo with that scale run. Sliding out of that note, and we're going to slide immediately into 5 of the D. So that's 5 of the D, down to 3 of the G, up to 5 of the G. And now we're going to go back down to the 3rd of the D, up to the 5th of the A. And that leads into this. And that's 3 to 5 of the D, and then back down to 3 of the G for a double hit. And then a pull off from 5 to 3 of the G string, and then a 5-3-5 between the D and the G string. Nothing too complicated there. I'll play through it one more time slowly. And that leads into this. That is, you're grabbing the 3rd fret of the G string, and then you're killing the note almost immediately. And then you're grabbing the 5th fret of the G, sliding into 7, and then sliding back to 5. Without picking it. And then you're going to go 3rd fret of the G, up to 5 of the D. And that leads into this little reverse scale run. And that is the 3rd fret of the D string, up to 5 of the A, back to 3 of the A, sliding back down to 1 of the A, and now you're going to roll your finger up to the 1st fret of the low E and reverse it. So you're going to go 1 to 3 of the low E, 1 to 3 of the A, and then slide into 5. And then a double hit at the 3rd fret of the D. And then you're going to go 5 of the D string, back down to 3 of the G, back up to 5 of the D. So from that little scale run, one more time. And one more time from the very beginning of the solo proper. And that leads into this. And that's 5 hits on the 3rd fret of the G string, and then you're going to grab the 5th fret of the D. And then you're going to back and forth one more time between the 3rd of the G up to the 5th of the D. And then you're going to grab the 5th fret of the G, slide into 7, and then slide back to 5. Again, without picking it. And that leads into this. There's lots of string skipping going on there. It's a very interesting little pattern he does there. So we're going to hammer on. We're going to hammer on 3 to 5, release back to 3 of the G string, and then grab the 5th of the D. Back down to 3 of the G, up to 5 of the A. And then we're going to go 5 to 3 or 3 to 5 of the D, back to 3 of the G, and then back up to 5 of the A. One more time. And now you're going to string skip again, back down to the 5th fret of the G, And then you're going to go 5 of the G, back to 3 of the G, up to 3 of the D, and then resolve the whole thing on the 5th fret of the A string. So that whole lick. That's interesting stuff. Lots of string skipping. And that leads into this. That's 3 to 5 of the D, and then 3 to 5 of the G, and then slide into 7. And then you're going to grab the 6th fret of the B string. And then while that note is still ringing, you're going to grab the 5th fret of the G. And then you're going to get your pinky up here to the 8th fret of the B. And then you're going to grab the 7th fret while that note is still ringing of the G string. So that little phrase. That's kind of tricky. So up to that point, now we've got one more little scale run to finish up the first half of the solo. Up to that point from the solo proper. And that leads into this. And that is the second half of the solo. All right, so we're into this last little scale run before we get into the second half of this solo. And this little scale run goes something like this. So we're up in this position here for this one. You can play it down here, but it's more difficult, so it's better to play it up here. We're going to hammer on 8 to 10 of the low E, and then 8 to 10 of the A, and slide to 12. Same thing we did twice earlier in this solo, but we did it up here. One of them was at the very beginning. And then we're going to grab 3 notes at the 10th fret of the D. And then one more note and hammer on to 12. And then 2 notes at the 10th fret of the G. And then you're going to hit one more note and hammer on to 12. And then release back for 4 more notes at the 10th fret of the G. One more time slowly. And then you're going to hammer on 10 to 12, release back to 10 of the D. And then pull off 12 to 10 of the D. And then up to 12 of the A, back to 10 of the D, back to 12 of the D. And then this little guy. We're going to pull off 12 to 10 of the G, 12 to 10 of the D, finishing up on 12 of the A. And then we're going to go 10 of the D up to 12 of the A. And then 10 of the D to 12 of the D and slide out of it. Back to 5 of the D. So that whole scale run. One more time. And that begins the second half of the guitar solo. All right, so we're into the second half of this solo now, and we're coming out of that little scale run. And finishing up on that 5th fret of the D string, and that begins the second half of this solo. So we're at the 5th fret of the D, we're going down to the 3rd of the G, up to the 5th of the G, for a full step bend release, and then back to 3 and back to 5 for another bend, and then release to 3 again. And then roll back to 3 and then roll up to the 3rd of the D. And then we're going to go 5 of the D, back to 3 of the D, up to 5 of the A. And then we're going to grab the 3rd fret of the low E, and then the 5th of the A and 5th of the D. And then down to 3 of the G, up to 5 of the D. So, with a little bit of a half step bend on that note at the 3rd fret of the G. So to that point. One more time. And then we're going to grab the 3rd fret of the G string, go to 5, and then slide to 7. Same thing we did twice earlier in this solo. You hit the note, kill it, grab 5, slide to 7. Then we're going to grab the 6th fret of the B, and then the 8th fret of the B, and then up to 7 of the G. And then back to 6 of the B, back to 8 of the B, with 2 notes that you let ring. So to that point. And then you're going to back up to the 6th fret of the B string, and then get your pinky up here to the 10th fret of the high E, and then back down to 8 of the B. And then back down to the 8th fret of the high E, and then hammer on 6 to 8 of the B. One more time. And then remove that finger and then bar the 6th fret of the B and the E, and then hit a note at the 6th fret of the B, and then pull off twice from 8 to 6 of the high E, catching the 6th fret of the B string. Do that twice. And then back down to 6 of the high E, and then resolving the whole thing on the 8th fret of the B. So, up to that point. And then we're going to go back to 6 of the B, and then up to 7 of the G, and then slide back to 5. No, don't slide. Move your index finger back to 5, because then you're going to slide back to 3. and then pull off one more time from 5 to 3 of the G. And then pull off one more time from 5 to 3. And then up to 5 of the D, back to 3 of the G, and then basically just up the scale from 5 to 3 of the A, up to, or of the D up to 5 of the A. And then we're going to reverse it. We're going to go 3 to 5 of the D, and then 3 to 5 of the G. And then skip a string back up to the 5th of the A like we've done so many times before. So that little lick coming from this part here. One more time. And one more time. And then one final scale run back up into this position again at the 8th fret. And the same thing we did to finish up the first half of the solo. And then the 3 hits at the 10th fret of the D string. And then hammer on to 12. And then one more hit at the 12th of the D, down to 10, up to 12, and then slide to 14. And then give that some vibrato. So up to that point in this scale run. One more time. And don't pick that last slide. And then finishing up the whole solo with this. So you're barring the 13th fret of the B and the E string, hammering on 13 to 15 of the B, and catching the 13th of the high E below it. And I think you're doing that 3 times, and then finishing the solo on the 15th fret of the B with vibrato. And one more time. And that's the end of the solo. Going to run through the second half of that solo from the beginning. Slide out of it. And that is how you play Aqualung by Martin Barre and Jethro Tull. I hope that helped you out, and again, another solo that there's not a whole lot of tutorials out there for. There are 1 or 2, but hopefully this is the best one. This should be the most accurate. I think this is exactly note for note. I've watched 1 or 2 myself, and while they're close, they're not exact. This is exact, I think. So anyway, I hope that helped you out. It's a great classic solo, and we'll see you next time with something, that maybe you can't find a tutorial for. So you guys take care of yourselves. Ciao.